We're going to continue on with doing some of the rules and parameters for the phase 2 procurement. We've already done the tax version, tax accounts, configuring automatic postings, and we have also, those are the main things we've done already. We're going to start with maintaining default values for tax codes and get through as much as we can. I try to keep these at about 20 minutes a piece so that they're a little bit manageable on your end. So we will get as much done as we can in about 20 or so minutes, 25 minutes at the max. So first, we're going to maintain the default values for the tax codes. We have to specify the default value to be used in invoice verification. Now, we can always change these later, but we want to set this up. GBI personnel will be more efficient during invoice verification process if the correct tax code is entered into their screen already. Now, they can change it if they'd like. Now, in most of what we're doing here, we're using tax codes of a 0 tax rate, but that's not the way it is in the real world. Everyone wants to tax everyone else, right? So we're going to go in, but just realize that this is an important part of the configuration, is setting up defaults so that it makes the process more streamlined. We're going to go into SPRO. We're going to go into the SAP reference IMG, SAP customizing implementation guide. We're going to go into materials management. We're going to go into logistics invoice verification. We're going to go into incoming invoice. We're going to go into maintain default values for tax codes. Now we're going to click on new entries, and we're going to enter our company code, which starts with the US, our last 2 digits of our ID. Now we're going to go into, if we click the green check mark, it'll pull up our information. We don't have to recreate it there. And the tax code, we're going to enter in input tax, or XI. This is an X and a letter I. We're going to, once that is in, all we have to do is click the Save button, and we should get a message that says data was saved. You want to enter that in, and we'll move on to the next step. The next step will also use this SAP reference IMG, and we're going to set the tolerance limits for price variance. This is the first of 4 steps in which we're going to set tolerances for quantity and price variances that can happen during procure to pay in the GBI business process. In this step, we're going to set the tolerance limits to be used when GBI sends the purchase order, the PO, to the vendor. Specifically, when GBI sends a purchase order, management wants to validate the purchase order price for each material is close to the price on the material master record. So we're going to set a tolerance that the PO price can be 20% less or 10% more than the price on the material record. So that's going to be the tolerance limits that we're setting here. So we're going to get into materials management. We're going to click on purchasing, purchase order, set tolerance limits for price variance. Now we're going to click on new entries. For the tolerance key, we're going to set it up for price variance purchasing, or PE. For the company code, we're going to put in our company code. Remember, that's US and the last 2 digits of our ID. The lower limit percentage here, check limit is selected. Oh, let me make sure I did this. Okay, we're not going to do absolute. We're just going to do check limit here. and the tolerance limit is 20. For the upper limit, we're going to have upper limit percentage tolerance limit. We're going to have check limit is selected and 10%. So just don't worry about the ones over here. These should be do not check. Now we're going to click on the next entry. The next one is going to be the tolerance key for maximum cash deduction, which is SE, for our company code US and the last 2 digits of our ID. Now you're going to see that we're not going to check anything there, so we're not going to have anything for that piece of it. We're going to click the Save button, and you should get a message that says data was saved for that one. Next, we're going to set the tolerance limit for goods receipt. Let's get back out here to the SAP main menu, or I'm sorry, not the SAP main menu, but the customizing main menu. And in this set, in this exercise we're about to do, we're going to set the tolerance limits for goods receipt. So this is the second of the 4 steps. In this step, we're going to set up the tolerances for different quantity and price variances that happen in when we receive the material against the purchase order. So management wants to validate the quantity received by GBI is pretty close to the quantity on the purchase order, and that the goods receipt price is close to both the PO price and the moving average price for this material. So in this particular one, we're going to set up parameters to make sure that that's going to happen. We're going to click on SAP reference IMG, materials management, inventory management and physical inventory, goods receipt, set tolerance limits. We're going to click on new entries. And for the tolerance key, we're going to enter in order price quantity variance, which is B1. Let me make sure I got the right one there. Yeah. Company code is RUS and our last 2 digits of our ID. Now we're not entering anything on here. The next is the order price quantity variance, which is B2. Company code is US and the last 2 digits of our ID. You're going to see that we're not checking anything under here. Moving average price variance. We're going to put in US and the last 2 digits of our ID. I'm going to click Save. And you should get a message that says data was saved. Next, we're going to set up the tolerance limits for invoice. These are also tolerances related to quantity and price variances, but these are related to when GBI receives the vendor invoice. So specifically, management wants to validate the vendor invoice price and quantity are close to the original purchase order and the goods receipt transaction. So these tolerance limits allow GBI to ensure that they are invoiced the appropriate amount. So we're going to go into SAP reference IMG, materials management, logistics invoice verification, invoice block, set tolerance limits, we're going to click on new entries, and for the tolerance key, amount for item without order reference, or AN, For company code, we're going to enter in our company code. And we're going to click on the next entry. Now I want you to look and star in your notes underneath this one that you need to go to Appendix D. Appendix D contains all the data about the tolerance keys in GBI. So we need to go and enter the rest of these from that location. I'm going to go ahead and use Appendix D, so you're going to have to go look at it and make sure that you put in each one of these. Now we're going to use these, and we're not going to be checking these in the lower limits, but you still need to enter these in order for the transactions to happen. So we're going to enter these tolerance keys, and we can go in later and check these limits later when we want. The next one we want to do is BD, which is forming small differences automatically. We're going to click in US and the last 2 digits of our ID. We're not entering any of the lower limits here. The next one we're going to do is BR, percentage of operating unit variance, IR before the GR. So you can see that these are some of the different transactions or the different tolerances that we can have. The next one is BW, which is the percentage of variance GR before IR. We're going to enter that in for our company code. And I like to check mark that I'm getting each one of these done. Tolerance key for DQ. We're going to enter in US 88. Tolerance key of KW. Variance from the conditions table, US 88. Go to the next one. This is PP for price variance. We also have to enter that in for US 88. Tolerance key for estimated price. PS. US 88. And we're also going in and doing the date variance for US 88 as well. Double check that you entered all of those. I check marked mine, so then I can click save, and you should get a message that says data was saved. You should get a message that says data was saved. And then we can go on to define the tolerance for our vendors. This is the fourth and final of the steps in which we set the tolerances. Let's exit back out of this and get back to the SAP reference IMG. In this step, we set the tolerance limits that are used when GBI pays a vendor. Management wants to specify a default vendor tolerance to validate that payment shortfalls up to $10 or 1% are automatically posted to a designated revenue account, and that payments excess of up to $1, payments excessive up to $1 or 1% is automatically posted to a designated expense accounts. So these are going to be used in these situations. We're going to click on SAP reference IMG. Financial accounting new, accounts receivable and accounts payable, business transactions, outgoing payments, manual outgoing payments, define tolerances for vendors, new entries. For our company code, we're going to enter in RUS and last 2 digits of RID. For the tolerance group, we're going to leave that blank. The name of the tolerance group, we're going to put in 88 GBI default. Oops, I spelled default wrong. For the gain amount, it's going to be 10. These are going to go into the permitted payment differences. Gain percent is 1%. Loss amount is 1% of 1%. Payment term from invoice is selected, and only grant a partial discount is selected also. We click on the next entry screen, and we should get our Global Bike company code again. For the tolerance group, we're going to call this one GBI. Oops. And we're going to call this one 88. Global Bike Incorporated. Gain amount, we're going to call it 20. Gain percentage 2. Loss of 2. Loss percent of 2. Payment term from invoice selected. Only grant partial discount. And we're going to click the Save button. Data was saved. Data was saved. Now you might be wondering why we left one of them blank. That's considered the null variance, or when we don't have anything defined, that's going to be what it's using. But we also have the tolerance group of GBI that is set as well. We're now going to click on default values for inventory. We're going to get back to the SAP main menu, and in the default values for inventory, we're going to update the keys used in the invoice verification process. This is pretty complex, but when GBI receives a vendor invoice, the correct combination of credit and debit accounts must be used in the various business conditions. So we're going to go up into System, Services, Table Maintenance, Extended Table Maintenance, and you can see that we're going into one of the tables again, II-2-9. This time it's not P, it's V. We're going to click on Maintain, and we need to go down to RUS 88 and enter in 31, 21. Then we're going to enter in the credit entry, which we can see is 50. And 40. Then we can look for 99, which is stock outward movement, which is 99. The next one is 89. You can see it down here, stock inward movement, 89. Posting key for credit postings is credit asset, or 75. And debit asset, I don't know if you saw that, but the debit asset was for 70. So debit asset is 70. We need to click on save. Now you can see that like US 31, US 40, they haven't gotten to the step yet, but that's okay. They'll get there eventually. We'll get our message data was saved, and we'll stop right there for now because we're right at about 20 minutes, and we'll continue on with the rest of our rules and parameters in the next demo. Thank you.